The home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. Woo! Finally back in the saddle again, like that old Aerosmith song. Went on a little vacation, went down to the casino for a few days in Philadelphia, Mississippi. Sorry I couldn't take y'all with me. I almost done a podcast from the casino, but I didn't do it. But like the casino, you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. And that's just like college football. And these two teams all off season has been a tick for tack for me and a lot of podcasters, and that's the Oklahoma Sooners and those USC Skittle Shitters. The Oklahoma Sooners, they need to calm their feathers. Everything's going to be fine. And for those USC Skittle Shitters, as always, y'all need to pump your brakes over your supposed little landmark astronomical win over those those Oreo State Beavers. Let's talk about it. That's right. Back in the saddle again. Like Aerosmith. Like that old song from the 1970s. One of our old school songs of the day. The theme of the day. Back in the saddle. But before we get to all that, I'd like to ask you to like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Also, I am the OCF. That's the Outlaw of College Football. I'm also known as JPC. That stands for Jesse Paul Clark on Facebook. Spelled Jesse without the I. Also, I'm on Twitter at OCF Productions. Now, getting right to it. Seems like these two teams have been butting head the whole off season, and now it's spilling over into the regular season. First of all, I'd like to get to those Oklahoma Sooners. Y'all can't let these USC fans run you off, man. I've noticed that a lot of you Oklahoma fans have been commenting in private messages to me that they want me to ban these USC fans from my channel and stuff. I'm not big on censorship, but if they do something that I consider is not on the up and up, believe me, I will ban them from my channel. But you got to move on past that, man. You got to get in here and take up for your team and calm your feathers a little bit. It's not as bad as you think. We all knew this was coming. We all knew that eventually Oklahoma was going to lose a game this year because that's the way it is normally throughout history. You do have some rare instances, like I've said before, in some past podcasts where you had Gus Malzahn that went undefeated, went to the title game and lost to Florida State. Then you had Larry Coker, who actually won a national championship in his first year with the Miami Hurricanes way back when in the early 2000s. But those are not the norm. That's just two coaches out of... and there's probably a few other coaches. But for the most part, if I had to guess, out of 130 plus years of football, those that have come in and actually won national championships, probably pretty slim. I'd probably say maybe just 2 or 3 tops in 130 years. So, calm your feathers. Don't let these USC Skittle Shitters run you off. Which brings me to the USC Skittle Shitters. Y'all run up in here talking all this mad noise, man. And this one guy gets on here and he goes on a recruiting video of all things that has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. But he said, I'm back. I said I was going to be back. And I'm like, yeah, it took you 3 months to come back. You're proud of that? You're proud of the fact that you only show up when your team's winning and when your the supposed team that you want to move on, you can't move on from them, that you got it registered in your brain 3 months later. I mean, I really must have touched a huge skittle shitting nerve for you to have held on to it for almost 3 months, brother. I'm sorry, man. I apologize if I traumatized you by laying out the facts for you and your skittle shitters. Now, it is true that y'all more than likely are going to have a better record this year than Oklahoma, but it's only because y'all play teams like Oreo State in conference. Y'all had this earth-shattering win. It was just astronomical, class. I couldn't believe it. They actually beat Oregon State You know your history of Oregon State football? You need to know it. You need to know the history of all these teams you're playing. I got my little college football Bible right here for the Skittle shitters out there. That's right, Athens Magazine. USC plays Arizona State next. We all know Arizona State sucks. I mean, they run their coach off mid-season just like Nebraska did. They run Herm Edwards off, of all people. So it must really suck if Herm Edwards can't win there. Washington State. We all know Washington State's history. I mean, they're having a decent year this year, but the history of Washington State is what? 3-4 wins a year? Then y'all play at Utah. Might be the first good game you play, but Utah hasn't looked that great this year. They went on the road and lost to a Florida team that's middling. Florida's already lost 2 games. So, moving on down, Arizona got blowed out by California this past week by 20, I think. California, one of those teams, once again, middling of the road teams that average 3, 4, tops 5 wins a year. Then you have Colorado, who's 0-4. UCLA has beat up on the likes of Bowling Green, Alabama State, and South Alabama, who almost beat them. And then they beat Colorado, who's winless. Then they play Notre Dame, who lost to Marshall at home. Who do y'all play, man? Y'all want to talk about all these people, make all these little asinine comments, when in fact y'all a big old farce out there in L.A. And the whole West Coast in general, y'all a big old farce, man. I mean, Utah is probably the only team I have any respect for out there. And they really don't belong. Utah should be in the Big 12. Or the SEC even. Y'all got a conference with built-in cupcakes, man. How lame is that shit? How lame is that? That's pretty bad. Y'all want to give people hell about playing non-conference cupcakes. Well, hell, we have to make up for you guys playing 5 or 6 cupcakes a year built into your conference. So, yeah, sure, y'all might go undefeated this year because your schedule sucks. Y'all might go through the schedule and maybe only lose 1 game to Utah and get into a New Year's Six bowl. But here's the caveat and all that. When you do that, just ask Notre Dame. They've done it a few times. They made it through a schedule where these teams used to be good back in the day, but they suck now. Play a weak-ass schedule, and then they play someone like Alabama. Way back in 2012, they got blowed out 42-14. And then here recently in the playoffs, they got beat 31-14. And it could have been worse than that. Nick Saban let up on them because Nick Saban's a Catholic. But Oklahoma fans, y'all need to pump the brakes too. It's not as bad as you think. Kansas State is a good team for the most part. Now, they did lose to Tulane 2 weeks ago. I don't know what happened there. But usually, year in, year out here in the past 20 years, Kansas State's a decent program. A lot better than most of the Pac-12 schools out there that USC's beating their chest over. Beating Oreo State. That's why I called them Oreo State, because that's the closest thing as I can think of to a cupcake that matches their lame-ass name. But Brent Venables in his press conference, I watched his press conference, and he said the right things and did the right things in that press conference. He took full blame. It wasn't one of those coach speaks either. It was a situation where you could see it in his eyes, in his mannerisms. Whereas with Tebow, if USC does slip up and lose to one of those cupcakes in the Pac-12 that y'all play almost every week, he's going to have some kind of an excuse. He's going to have an excuse, just like Steve Sarkisian had that lame-ass excuse when Texas lost to Alabama. He said, we run out of time. That's the only reason we didn't really lose. We run out of time. Okay, Sarkisian. You do know that we all play by the same rules. We all play 4 quarters, 15 minutes apiece, 60 minutes. And if you're tied, well then, yeah, you get some extra time to try to win the game. But you weren't tied with us, Steve. And Steve, the way Steve was acting is the exact way Tebow's going to act. Tebow's going to be like, oh, this hadn't happened. Our offensive line just wasn't gelling today, and we were nicked up, and our quarterback wasn't making the right reads. But your quarterback wasn't making the right reads because of why? Because he wasn't coached properly to make the right reads. Well, our defense, blah, 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 didn't go into the drop back in the 4-3 when it's supposed to be a 3-4. And, well, whose fault is that? Once again, coaching. That's right. I just wanted to jump in here real quick because I saw a lot of Oklahoma fans acting like they wanted to go a cocoon or something, or slip off into the bushes and hide. Don't do that. Don't run away, man. Don't run away from these guys. Get in here and stand up to them and nail their ass, because they ain't really got much to go on, to be honest with you. I just laid it out for you. They got a weak-ass schedule. They got a weak-minded coach. And eventually, when you're weak, you're going out meeting somebody that's not weak. And you're not just going to get beat, you're going to get embarrassed. It'll almost be better for USC not to make the playoffs or New Year's Six Bowl. Because if they get on a big stage and they get embarrassed, it could almost be a hindrance and a harm to your program going forward, especially in recruiting. Because we know USC's been stuck in the teens for quite some time while Oklahoma continues to scale recruiting, which is where games are won eventually. You have to get the players, and then you have to have the coaches that develop them, and you have to have the coaches that have a spine, and when they lose a game, they don't make excuses. They just take the blame. And that's all I got to say about that. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.